Now, a really popular question, and I don't really know why, but has been what loot system our guild's using. Lots of people use either GDKP or EPGP or GDKP. Do people actually use that in guilds? I've heard that there are actually guilds out there that strictly run their guild runs with GDKP. Bit of a strange guild system, but I get it. Loot Council is a very popular one, and if you've followed me since the start of TBC, you'll know probably the system that we're using, and it's called That's My Bis. So the website's that'smybis.com, and it integrates into Discord, but it also integrates in-game, and it's really, really good, and I want to just highlight some reasons why. Now, this is not sponsored by That's My Bis. They have no idea that I'm making this video at all. It's just a really good loot system that I'd like people to be aware of, because it really cuts down on time, firstly. The amount of time it takes to distribute loot is practically zero. It's just done. It's all done for you. You have to put a little bit of effort in as the leadership team or the officer team or loot council team or whatever you want to call yourself. You have to keep on top of it. But, you know, once you've got it all set up, you're talking 10, 15 minutes worth of admin a week. That's about it. And there's not that much for anybody in your guild to do either, outside of setting their wish list at the start of a tier. So they go on, they set it once for a tier, and then that's it. Job's done. They can wait until tier 8 before they have to do anything again, and then do all tier 8 at the start, rinse and repeat. So you're only going to have to play with this as a raider in your guild. You'd only have to do this once per tier, which is pretty easy because it means you're not relying on people to do too much because they struggle, I want to say. But basically what it is like you can see here, if we go on to me, so no skill, and we look at my wish list. Now here's my wish list. Now there's a couple of bits of extra bits that I'm going to have to do now because we didn't want to waste too much time using another add-on in-game on the first raid night. You have to use another add-on in-game if you want to export data from the game to the website so it ticks all the loot off that people have received. But we didn't do that on the first run purely because we didn't want to waste time, obviously. So the additional step that I'm having to do at the moment is mark the loot as received. So I basically said at the start of tier 7, these are all the items that I want. And I prioritised them in order from start to finish. So first of all, I wanted the heroic key. The only reason that's at the top of my priority is not because of the item it gives, but purely because we wanted our main tanks to have the key. So we can just go straight to Malagos if we wanted to do that. So I've now got that, so I can tick that as received. I also got the chest plate, so I can tick that as received. I also got bindings of the hapless prey, so I can tick that off my list. Did I get lucky and get anything else? I think that is about it in terms of what's on my BIS list. So I can go down and save those now, and now they're removed from my wish list. So now what the leadership do, so this is where the little bit of admin comes into play from your loot council team or whatever, is you go through each item in Nax. So you can see you've got all the items that drop from Trash, all the items from Anna Brecken, all the items from every single boss. And then you can look at where the people prioritised it. So if we look at something that's a bit of a contested item, if we were to look at the Gem Wand of Nerubians, for example, you can see here Thrive and Alatea have both said that it's number 11, so it's quite low down on their list. Indis 13, Crypts 13, and Fungi 16. So none of them want it that bad. It's not like it's a number 1 item. So you then, as the officer team, decide in what order these people are going to get that item. And like you can see here, Chains of Adoration from Anna Brecken, we only had one person in our raid team that wanted it, and that's Paradise, and you can see that Paradise already has it. So that now can just be rolled out or any other way that you want to deal with the loot. So you could now simply just loot cancel that item. You link it because if it's an upgrade for someone, you're still going to want them to get it as an upgrade. But you don't have to worry too much because you know ultimately they should be replacing it. Now the other good thing, if you're like us and you have several raid teams, we've got Raider as our main team, then we've got Raid 2, and then we've got Social Raid team. So you can split people into what raid team they're going to be in and then have completely different priorities. So looking at our other raid team, just using Chains of Adoration as an example, there's 2 Resto Druids in that group and both want it. So you can see Crump, when it drops, Crump will be getting it first. When it drops the next time, Blorby will be getting it. So it makes it really clean for everybody in the guild just to look through and see exactly when they're going to get that item when it drops. They might be first, they might be last, but they know, and there's no arguing on the day. Now the brilliant thing with this is, they're more or less telling you in what order they want it, and you're just agreeing. You know, if somebody puts, I don't know, let's say Sinister Revenge as their number 1, but then another rogue puts Web Death as their number 1, you can now just go, well, you're getting that first, you're getting that first. You know, if lots of people have put the same item as 1, 2, whatever, then obviously you have to juggle it around a little bit and say, you know, well, just make a decision and say who's getting it first, second, third, whatever. But most of it sort of works itself out because not many people are going to select exactly the same items in exactly the same order of priority. Because if you've already got, I don't know, Dark Moon Card Greatness or something like that, you might not rank a trinket particularly high. You might want a trinket and it is going to be your best in slot, but because your trinkets are half decent already, you'd prefer the tier set bonus first, you'd prefer the weapon first. Everybody's going to be different, so it almost sorts itself out. You're probably thinking though, what does it look like in game? Fair question. Well, just briefly before we get to what it looks like in game, there are several add-ons that you can actually use to manage it. So we use TMB tooltips, and then all you literally do is download the CSV and then you import it into the game. So what this will then do is show all priorities on every piece of loot. So if we go into Dungeons and Raids and we look at NACs, this works not just on when the item drops, but it also works in Atlas loot, so you can always have a quick look through any boss you want, any item you want, and see where you're ranked. Now, when we look at something like, let's say, Last Laugh or Betrayer of Humanity, any of these really contested KT items, you'll notice that things like, if we look at Last Laugh, you can see who's got it on their wish list. So we've got a couple, well, 4 DKs and a warrior. And then you can see the prios, and you can see that there's a few of them that are prioed 1. So 1, 1, 1, 2, 2. Now, you obviously might have a decision to make here on who gets it between the ones who are prio 1. But that's not quite how it works, because we're actually looking at the loot across a couple of raid teams. So actually, when you look at all 3 of those DKs that are ranked 1, there's only ever going to be 1 of them in the raid. So there'll be 1 in raid 1, 1 in raid 2, 1 in the social raid, or maybe 2 in 1, 1 in the other. But ordinarily, you'd spread the prio 1s that the loot council have set across the multiple raid teams. So actually, if you prio 1, odds are when it drops, you're going to get it. Because you can only have 1 person that's prioed 1. Do you know what I mean? But because we're looking at multiple raid teams here, it will show multiple people as 1 and multiple people as 2. But we know, as the leadership in the guild, that obviously then people are very, very, very rarely going to be in the same raid as each other. Maybe there'll be one exceptional circumstance along the line, I don't know. Maybe we don't have enough to run 3 teams, we only run 2. Don't have enough to run 2, we only run 1. You know, whatever. But it just looks really clean. And now, as the master looter, when you're actually looking at the loot that's on the boss, you can just look straight away, see prios, go Seraphy, give it to him. Done. Next item. Prios, Amber, Amma, Crombo. They're all number 1 on prio on the cape. So a good example of this would be Amber will be in one group, Amma will be in the other, Crombo will be in another. You know, they'll rarely be in the same group together. So when it drops, it's just instantly going to go to one of those people. There's no rolling, there's no arguing. Everybody knows when to expect that piece of loot that they're going to get. And if there are multiple ones, and you can see there's multiple ones in the group for whatever reason, you then just discuss it and you go back to a traditional sort of loot council where you decide which one's getting it first. But ultimately, if one of them gets it now, the other one knows, well, they're 100% getting it the next time. Do you know what I mean? So it's a very transparent loot system and really easy, because if you know your BIS list, or you've deviated from a Wowhead BIS list or a class Discord BIS list or something like that, and you've got a specific setup of gear that you want, you tell us, you know, you tell your guild, I want these items during tier 7, and you put them in order that you want them, and then your guild will say, okay, well, this is the order that you're going to get them in. Done. Nothing to do for the rest of the tier, because when you then integrate it in with RC Loot Council, so what you would do is use RC Loot Council as the distribution tool of the items. So you will look at who got what and what they got it for. Then you can export this data as, say, CSV. You can then export all of this data, and then you can import it into That's My BIS, and now it will automatically remove all the items off of these people's wish lists. And like you can see here, Chest Guard of the Recluse, there's a line through it. That means Afro Killer has got that item. Looking at Blorby here, Idol of Awakening, he's got it. It's crossed off. So you can use it as a really good tool as well, as a raider, to track how well your BIS list's coming along. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, you could just look at your character in game and see how it's coming along. But you know what I mean. It's just a nice little tool, nice website, clean, nice way of looking at loot, nice way of seeing when you're going to get loot and what you're going to get. And ultimately, it doesn't take like a rocket scientist to work out how it all comes together. There are some little nuances, I would say, that you'll get used to. Ways of doing things for you, what works for your guild, how much time you can invest into it. But it's a really cool loot system, and I just wanted to spend 10-15 minutes today talking about it. So if you've got any questions about it, jump on my Discord, check out Rested XP, especially the Gold Assistant at the moment, because I am making crazy amounts of gold from the Rested XP Gold Assistant. If you haven't seen my fishing video, check it out. But put it this way, since that fishing video, I've made tens of thousands of gold. So it does work. Check it out. Link in the description. Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.